Buddy, I'm in Jerez, Spain right now, here to talk to you about one of the things I worked on with the project, and that is the init map function, which is essentially all of the Google Map API stuff that we use. So we use three different things. We use the direction service, we used the distance matrix service, and then we just use Google Maps itself to be able to show all of those things. So I'm going to walk you through the code real quick. So essentially, like the beginning of this code right here is just kind of setting it up for the directions service that I'm going to use later, which is going to show that little blue line that essentially will show the user like where's the closest bar that you can find the beer that you just searched for. So in this case, I did a search for Fireman's 4, and it told me that. I'm using a dummy position since I'm in Spain, but I'm somewhere on Old Torf, but I'm really close to Black Sheep Lodge for Fireman's 4. So anyway, this little chunk of code right here is from Google Maps. It's just basically saying, hey, you're going to start this new variable map. It's going to center the map on the user's position, so this variable POS, which you get from the HTML5 geolocation services, and then zoom in at 15. I think the default was like 8, which to me was kind of far out, so I wanted to zoom it in to make it a little closer. Next little segment right here, this whole little chunk right here that I've highlighted, this is basically we made an array and called it the variable bar array, or bar r, and essentially this array is storing all the bars that sell the beer that the user has just searched for, and it puts those particular bars into an array. And then what I do is get the longitude and latitude of each of those bars and then display them onto the map. So if I go back to our map, it does look like only Black Sheep Lodge is on here, but if I zoom out, and we don't have all the data for all the bars, but if I zoom out, you can kind of see like, okay, there's I think Haymaker right there, and then also the Good Night right there. So we've got those also showing up. Moving on down, the next line right here, this is just placing the marker for where the user is. Oh yeah, I also wanted to mention like the icon. That was kind of neat that you Google Maps lets you input your own type of icon, so you can see that I kind of placed these little beer icons, which I thought was kind of cool. And then this next really big chunk of code is kind of like where everything happens. Essentially, we wanted to make it so that it'll calculate which of these bars has the closest distance to where the user is, and that's using this distance matrix service that comes in with the Google Maps function. Now, Google has a distance matrix API, which is originally what I tried to use, but I was getting that CORS error that some of y'all probably had to deal with, and so the way around that was I realized, oh look, distance matrix is actually included in with Google Maps, so it worked out well that way. So again, I'm using bar R, so all the bars that that sell the beer that the user used, and I'm getting all of the I'm essentially finding the distance the user is from each of those bars, and then I'm storing the distance of each of the bars into this variable called num, and if num is less than the distance, which I think we set the distance like 10,000, so hopefully the bar is less than 10,000 miles away, which all of these are, it'll start storing what the closest bar is to that user. There's probably a faster way to do this, but this is just what I could come up with the little time that I had. And so essentially all these variables right here, the bar name and distance and bar URL and all that, are called in the beginning of this JavaScript file. But it's then going to set that to be the closest bar. So as it goes through each of the bars in the array, it'll find which one is the closest one to the user. And once it does find that, that will be the ending of all of these variables. Each of these variables will now contain the closest bar. And then once I have that, I create this variable request, which is going to help us for the directions service inside the Google Maps, which is going to help us give the blue line showing the user where to go. And so it's, the origin is the position of the user, the destination is the latitude and longitude of that bar lat and bar LNG, which is the closest bar to the user. And then after that, we just display that information into onto the map, and then also we display it with this long line of code into that well that basically says how far away the user is and how long it's going to take them to get there. So hopefully that was insightful for some of y'all, and I will see you all on Tuesday.